In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the money mistakes that I've made as a nurse. I think a lot of people have this impression that I'm so good with money because I teach nurses how to invest and that I talk about money all the time. But in reality, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now is because I have learned from the money mistakes that I have made in my lifetime. And so yeah, we'll go over those money mistakes that I have made, and I want to share with you all because I'm pretty sure that if you are going through the same thing, that you are not alone. So number one money mistake that I have made is getting into credit card debt. And right now I'm kind of like debt averse because as soon as I see that my statement in my credit card is more than $500, like I make sure that I pay it off right away. And the reasoning for this is because back when I was a new grad nurse, I got into around $10,000 of credit card debt, and it took me a while to really pay that off. I think a lot of us have this mindset that credit card is money that we have, and that as long as our limit is way above the amount of money that we have, then we can spend whatever on that card. And the other problem is that sometimes we get into the habit of using our credit card for things that we don't really necessarily need. And this was me back when I was a new grad nurse. I was spending money on like material things, like a lot of money on clothing, on like bags that up to now I don't really use as much anymore. And getting out of that credit card debt, it was so hard because just like investing, when I talk about compound interest, it's the same thing as getting into debt. And the longer that you want to pay it off, the more interest it accrues over time. And right now, the average credit card, interest rates is above 20%, which is so ridiculous. I would recommend that if you have credit card debt, to just really make it into a priority to pay it off. But at the same time, if you're paying it off, to also get into the root of how you get into that debt in the first place, right? Like I remember I had a student one time who was, I think $16,000 in credit card debt, or I think over 20,000. And the reasoning for that is because she had a pet and there was an emergency. They had to pay veterinary, fees, and she didn't have any emergency savings. So she ended up using her credit card to pay it off, which at that time, I really understand where she's coming from. Like she really needs to use that money, and she really needs to use that card to, for her pet. But at the same time, it kind of all stems down to not having that emergency fund. And I think getting to the root cause of why we're getting into that debt in the first place is more important than actually paying off the card, because even though you pay off the card, you're going to end up like accruing credit card debt again if you don't get to that root cause. And in my case, it was more of like my mindset around what credit cards are used for. Like I said initially, I thought it's money that I have. Now I don't treat it as such, and I make sure that I have the money to pay it off before I even use my credit card. Nowadays, I even don't go well above like the 30% limit on my card. And if I do, I pay it off right away. Say, for example, I'm going to have like a big travel purchase, then I would pay it off right away. Like I don't spend my credit card on things that I cannot afford with actual cash or actual money in my debit card or my checking account. And I think this is a good habit to have if you don't want to get into debt, because getting into debt is so hard, because getting out of it is even harder. And credit cards, now don't get me wrong, credit cards, I love them for their use, and at the same time for the benefits of using them, like for example cashbacks and also travel points. Like me and my husband, especially my husband, he loves using credit card points. We have a lot of credit cards, so we have over 10 credit cards like together, but we use our credit cards mainly for cashbacks and travel points. We're able to go on travel luxury vacations, on 5-star hotels, even was able to get my parents in a first class flight. We even use it for business class flights to the Philippines and in Japan, because of travel credit card points. And so utilize it nowadays to really make it work for us versus us getting into the debt that is so hard to get out of. So yeah, so that was my first mistake. The second mistake that I did is that this has something to do with my nursing job. I took out my retirement money when I left my first job. So story, like when I was a new grad nurse, we had a county hospital in our city, and I ended up working for that county hospital, and they were actually offering pension, and I did not contribute anything to my retirement as far as like employer sponsored retirement accounts at that time. And so what I did with my pension money is that I ended up withdrawing it when I left my first new grad job. I moved out of if you know me and you have kind of like listened to some of my podcasts, watched some of my videos, you know that I moved out of my parents' house when I was in my 20s. I moved to a different city, and at that time I ended up like taking my retirement money with me. I withdrew it, paid the penalty, paid the not actually the penalty, but I think I paid taxes on it, and then I ended up going back to that same hospital as a nurse practitioner. So I ended up having to pay the hospital money so I can buy my credit back. So the good thing is I was able to buy my credit back because now I'm actually vested for my pension. But had I just like kept it in there, I would have saved money on taxes, and also I wouldn't have to like pay out like a big cash like upfront just to get that credit back. I think I paid around $12,000 just to get back to that pension plan. And it may not be as much as what people would think it is, but that is still a lot of money. $12,000. I was browsing through this favorite Facebook group that I'm in on like financial freedom, and one of the posters put that he actually have to pay like $300,000 for a pension to buy his credit back, and I don't know anybody who has that much cash just sitting in their bank, right? But anyways, yeah, so that is one of my mistakes, is taking my money out, withdrawing it, paying the penalty, paying the taxes on it, when I could have just left it in there, let it grow, and saved me so much more money now that I ended up going back to that same hospital. So if you have a 401k, which is a little different than a pension, what I would recommend that you do if you switch jobs or if you want to like move to a different city is to either roll over your 401k to your new job, or you can also just keep it there and let it grow. There are a lot of options for you to roll over your 401ks. I have worked with Capitalize before. This video, by the way, is not sponsored, but if you want to roll over your old 401ks to your new 401k, you can use this link right here. It's by a platform called Capitalize, and they do everything for you, so you can roll it over. So yeah, so that is one of the other mistakes that I did. Number 3 mistake that I did is buying a new car and taking out a 6-year loan. And this is something I don't normally talk about, just because like we all, especially here in America, we have to kind of like get ourselves into the auto loan, like debt, just to be able to drive a nice new car. But one of the things that I learned in my financial journey is that like I don't necessarily need a new car to drive myself to and from work, right? Like I know that there are people who are into cars, like they actually love cars. Like that is one thing that they actually wouldn't mind spending money on. But reflecting back on my goals and also kind of like my financial stance when it comes to like cars, I actually don't care much for cars. And this car actually is paid off already. You can see it's a very old Acura. We've had this for a while. This has been paid off. It works really great, and I actually love this car so much. I don't need a new car anymore. But the mistake that I made was on my Tesla. Not to mention, I don't even want to talk about politics right now, but I had my Tesla, you know, back in 2019, and we took out a 6-year loan on that car. And even though the rates are not that high, it was like my camera died because it's too hot. Even though it's not really hot, my car was like hot, and so it died. But anyways, like even though the interest rate for that car is not that high, it's 2025 now, and I bought that car in 2019, and we're still paying off that car. I'm almost close to paying it off, which I am so glad that that's one less, you know, thing that I have to pay for monthly. But I was paying $750 a month on that car, and from now on, I think my goal is to just if my car is working, I'm not gonna buy a new car. And if I do want to buy a new car, I would definitely not, you know, like take out that long of a year loan. But if I do ever get a new car, I would follow the Money Guy show calculator called the 23/8. And what it is just this is something that they came up with, where you put down 20% for the car, and you should be able to pay off your car in 3 years or less, and your car payment should not be more than 8% of your income. So that is like their rule when it comes to buying cars and like taking out auto loans. I don't think I'm gonna be using it anytime soon because I don't plan on buying a new car. We'll see though, never say never. But in the meantime, no, we're not gonna do that. But yeah, that is like one of the mistakes that I have made. And of course, I'm still paying it off right now. So if you have a car that's working right now and taking you to and from work and you're safe, then you don't need to buy a new car. You don't need to take out another auto loan. Just a reminder. That is like one of my mistakes. And then the fourth mistake that I have done is, this is something that I always say. This is something that I always mention, is that I really wish that I had started investing early. And this is really coming from someone who has been a nurse for like a decade, and I did not start investing until I was already 8 years into my career. And I wish I had started earlier. That way I kind of ease off now when it comes to my investing, because right now I am like hustling. I'm hustling and puffing because I have to catch up to make sure that I get a dignified retirement and I have the option to retire early in the future. So the reason why starting investing early is so essential is because of that compound interest that I had just talked about. And looking back, I think a really big part of why I did not invest early is because of the fear of taking that risk and the fear of losing money. And you know, like a big part of it too is because I do not know any better. Like I did not know anything about money. I talk about risk in my like last video. You can check it out in here. But I really wish I had took more risks. So even when I was in my 20s, I am young, and I think that like when you're younger, you have a better tolerance to risk because you have a long time horizon to kind of get back up and recuperate, versus if you're kind of like on your later stages in life and you don't have much room to recover, right? So I had wished that in my 20s, I took more risk when it comes to investing, when it comes to like starting businesses and being more bold like with life decisions, even though I know at that time I already made, you know, life decisions that are bold. But you know, I wish I would have invested sooner. And yeah, so if you're in your 20s, like you should start really investing now and really educating yourself. That way you are not, you know, scared and fearful of like what could be if you take that, you know, risk. And It could be as simple as reading a book. It could be listening to my podcast or any other podcast when it comes to money. And I actually have a platform called nursingflowsheet.com. This is where I teach nurses how to learn more about money, nursing, and investing, and how you can grow professionally and financially. So if you want that information, you can check it out. But educating yourself and taking that risk of investing will really pay off in the long run, and I really recommend that you do that. Like right now, even in my late 30s, I am still encouraging myself to take risks in life, especially if it involves growth and, you know, something that would improve my life for the better. Hold on, something's... So yeah, so make sure that you take the risk. So in summary, some of the money mistakes that I have done is, number one is get into credit card debt. Number two is taking my retirement money out. Number three is auto loans, spending a lot of money on cars that are liabilities. And then lastly is kind of connected to the second one, which is not investing for my future. I really wish I had educated myself earlier and actually started investing early. That way I can build a better future for myself and my family. But yeah, so those are the things that I have done. I'm pretty sure there are other, you know, mistakes that I have done in my whole nursing career. And they're very minor mistakes. These are the 4 big ones that I can think of on top of my head that have really costed me a lot of money, you know, long run. But yeah, so hopefully that you know that if you had made some of these mistakes, that you feel it's not something that you have done alone. Like, this is something that a lot of people like go through and learn from. And I always look at experiences and things like this, or mistakes like this, as learning experiences versus something that I regret. Like, sometimes I do say that I regret it, but in reality, like, there's really no such thing as that, because I have learned a lot from all the mistakes that I have done financially, and this is the reason why I am here right now where I'm at, is because I have learned a lot from all of them. And, you know, even that is something that I got something out of, you know what I mean? So yeah, so those are the mistakes that I wish I didn't do, but at the same time I learned from. And if you like more content on nursing, business, and even money, then make sure you follow my channel, click the subscribe button below, like this video. I hope to be making more videos soon. I actually have a lot of things to share with you. If you have been following my journey for a while, I have a lot of like new stuff for you. And yeah, hopefully I see you guys in the next video. Bye.